And that's something I don't think I've seen any of the other reviews mentioning. The Swift 2.0 is here. What is it, how well does it perform, and is it worth it? That's what we're going to be talking about today. Let's get into it. Okay, so if you found this video, you probably already know what this is. This is the Worker Harrier, and it's Worker's first release of this year. This is a manually primed spring-powered blaster, which is something we're very familiar with here on the channel. So let's get started with what comes in the box. Or better yet, the box itself. This thing is tiny. All of this blaster plus some accessories fit in this tiny ass box, and that's because the blaster comes disassembled. Well, partially anyways. The core blaster is assembled in two parts that you screw together here and here using an included Allen key, which is located directly in the buffer tube behind the stock. And that's something I don't think I've seen any of the other reviews mentioning. If you absolutely need a tool to assemble or disassemble your blaster, not only does Worker usually include it, they also find a way to hide it on the blaster so that you never lose it if you always put it back, and I've always liked that about them. That being said, this blaster comes with metal Picatinny on either side and a full metal Picatinny all the way across. Since this is one piece, it actually unifies the blaster and adds to its rigidity. There's also a small section of Picatinny right here at the bottom. With 4 sections of Picatinny on this blaster, you'll have no problem with getting your attachments on there. GoPro, light, extra handle, laser, 37 scopes if that's your thing.
To the scopes, I've also attached here another aim point scope because, I'm a fan of aim points, and just in case, all the other scopes fail, I've got this one out here for that extra close range. I can come right up here, choke up on the weapon.
There's definitely room for all of it, and then some. Moving to the back half of the blaster, we have a metal handguard here, a rubber texture grip that is removable, your trigger, your safety, and your mag release. You'll also notice that this has a slightly flared mag well for easier reloading, and that it's half-length exclusive. The blaster also does have a section of Picatinny here under this Worker handle. This one does not come with the blaster, but it does come with one. In fact, it comes with this one, which is actually one of my favorites that Worker makes. However, the reason that I have this one installed here is because this blaster is actually not mine, and my friend Dylan sent it over so that we could review it. So show some love for Dylan in the comments. Without Dylan, this review would not be possible. Thanks, Dylan. The blaster does have a buffer tube underneath this stock here, and it comes with this stock. It also comes with these 2 lengths of barrels, neither of which are the long one that's installed on it right now. These do come in this really nice gray finish. It does look like it might be powder coated, which is really premium. It does also come with 2 spring options, and just like the barrels, you can buy upgrades made directly by Worker. It does also come with the initially controversial mini mag. A lot of people seeing the early designs thought that this might be a proprietary mag. Luckily for us, it's not. This is known as the Eagle mag, and it is the same geometry as all of the other Worker Talon mags. It's just a tiny baby one. Very cute. It also does come with some Worker darts and some O-rings, which is something that Worker usually does with these kinds of blasters. But that's about it. There are plenty of upgrades to buy for it if you'd like, and some of them are cross-compatible with some of the other blasters they've released, like their sling mounting point, located right here. Now let's take a look at the blaster as a whole. This blaster retails for about $190, and overall has a very premium build. All of the metal pieces, both the barrels, the Picatinny, and the handguard, all have this gunmetal gray finish, which is really nice. I also wanted to mention that the trigger itself is metal and with that same finish. There's also brass inserts for the screws everywhere, so we're never screwing directly into the plastic, which I absolutely love. And that's something a lot of other companies skip out on or only include in a few places. As for the aesthetics, this is definitely a blaster that I'm glad doesn't come in any dark colors, because it does have a very real steel aesthetic. And I'm not complaining about that. I just think seeing this blaster in black could be confusing and dangerous for a lot of people. So use with caution and mod/paint with caution as well. The teal is a very cool color. Me personally, I probably would have gone for white or orange, but all of the colors look fantastic. It also has a 2-to-1 iron sight, but to be honest, you're not going to be able to look down that. There's just not enough space for your face to get down low enough to actually line those up. So, not useful. I really doubt that's going to be much of an issue though, because more than likely you're going to attach a sight of your own. I also can see clearly the design language of the person who designed the Nightingale in this hand grip right here. I think it's safe to say that they're likely the same person. An interesting thing about this blaster to me is that it is a separate blaster, the Worker Harrier, and not the Swift 2.0, which is what I think it probably should have been called. But I'll talk more about that later. Another cool thing about this blaster is that the barrels actually twist on and off, which make them quick to change out. One unfortunate thing I've noticed already though is that the innermost part of the barrel has some scraping from priming. Luckily that's the area that you wouldn't be able to see when the barrel is installed, but still an unfortunate side effect. The blaster is absolutely huge with its biggest barrel, but with the smallest barrel, it's actually fairly reasonable. With the included 2 springs and 2 barrels, plus the 2 other springs and 2 other barrels that you can buy online, plus a myriad of other upgrades, it brings into question the performance. So I have all 4 options of springs and all 4 options of barrels, and we're gonna go ahead and try all of those out. Here's what we got. Man, it is pretty windy today. It's on and off, so you'll notice this probably sway a lot throughout the testing, but we're gonna go ahead and get started. Get some FPS numbers. This is the smallest spring and the smallest barrel that it comes with. We started off with spring 1 and then tested it with all 4 barrel options that you can buy. And as you guys will see, spring 1 is most effective with barrel 1, having an average FPS of 168 and having a standard deviation of only 10 FPS. Everything bigger than that barrel size with this first spring just really starts to lose performance with a standard deviation as high as 94 points. It really doesn't like the bigger barrels. We shouldn't do this, and it's definitely gonna give us poor results, but we're gonna anyways. With the second spring, again we find barrel 1, or the smallest barrel, to be the most effective. It had a high of 197, an average of 190, and a 15-point standard deviation. Barrel 2 is very usable though, with an average of 186 and a high of 199. With spring 2, every barrel is usable. It's just not quite as consistent. So with spring number 3, every barrel is usable, but again, the optimum barrels are going to be 1 and 2. Barrel 1 has a 10-point spread, while barrel 2 has a 20-point spread. They both have averages at about 250. Barrel 3 still hits in the 250s, but has an over 30-point standard deviation, and barrel 4 has the significant drops in performance, but every shot is still over 200. Spring 4, which is the heaviest spring that you can buy for this blaster directly from Worker, performs very consistently no matter what barrel you use with it. The tightest one is again barrel 1 with only a 10-point standard deviation and an average of 260 FPS. Barrel 2 is also consistent with this spring with a 12-point spread and average of 269, and barrel 3 is probably the highest performing one out of the bunch with a high of 279, an average of 272, and a 19-point spread. Barrel 4 has a 12-point spread and performs in the high 260s with a single shot high of 274. The optimal performance for this one is probably barrel 3, but will depend greatly upon your needs, but also probably your choice in rifling attachments. There was a lot of data to swallow in the FPS portion, and it was necessary to test all those different combinations to see what kind of power and what kind of consistency we're getting. When it comes to accuracy, we really only want to test high-performing combinations. Anything else is setting up the blaster for failure. Anyways, let's get to it. Alright, we're not at our usual venue, but it is raining a ton, so we got to do shooting inside. We're here at the San Diego tournament, double weekend. Oh, hello. There's a Tristan, a wild Tristan. Run! And, so, just to tell you a little bit about the tournament, I'm going to be doing an episode about it and double weekend in general coming up here on a new series that we're going to be doing called Traveling for Nerf. There will be other episodes where I'm traveling, but because everyone traveled here to come see us, I thought it would be a cool episode to put on there. Anyways, let's get to the shooting. Just for a little perspective, this is probably about 70 or so feet away, so we'll see how this goes.
Watch out, Tristan's coming.
Hit. 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 Ooh, slight miss. That one's on me. Hit. Hit. Honestly, just keep it going. Hit. Oh. Alright, we got our first real miss because the other one was definitely on me. Hit. I'm not even sure how many darts that was, to be honest. I wasn't counting. I was just kind of blinking and having fun, and this configuration is, you know, one of the higher configurations that you could do, but with a smaller barrel and a SCAR attachment. So as we can tell, this blaster is very accurate and on par with pretty much any of the other high performers that we've covered on the channel so far. The question is it worth it? Now that's going to be a completely subjective answer, and I think it also depends on what you're trying to do with it. But if you're looking for an out-of-the-box, ready-to-go option, and you want to do it with a premium option, I think this is definitely a good way to go. It's got a very smooth prime, even at heavier prime weights. It's made of premium materials. It's got a very cool aesthetic. It comes in a variety of colors. There's plenty of upgrades if you'd like to get into modding. I'm sure there's going to be third-party stuff coming out very shortly for this blaster. And a side note, if you really wanted to get rid of this handguard or some other things, you can. There's screws here and here, and it honestly is still pretty comfortable. I'd actually like to see a metal cap for this so that this could be removed. Not because I didn't like it, but because I like options. If you're younger, this blaster might not be for you. 1, it is pretty expensive. 2, it is pretty heavy. And 3, the prime weight, even with a smooth prime, might be a bit much for younger audiences. But if you're a teen or adult looking for a premium option and you've got some cash to burn, this is definitely one to look at. There are some minor things that I'm not a fan of, but you might like those things, and I do like overall the direction that Worker's headed. I wish this was a Worker Swift 2.0 in name, because it is that in spirit. It's got upgrades everywhere that the Swift needed it. Although it is roughly the same size, it is thinner, and that makes a substantial difference in feeling smaller. This is a side-by-side comparison. They're pretty much the exact same length, and have similar or the same barrel size options. although my Swift currently has a custom barrel on it. Some other things that I really liked is their decision to go with an removable grip over the pump grip style that they had on the Swift, which didn't have a Picatinny option unless you got an aftermarket piece for it. They're really starting the year off right. I'm excited to see what other things that they do, and I'm excited to cover other blasters. Now, another thing that I'd like to mention when it comes to the Swift versus this blaster is the price. The Swift started at $180, but now is on sale for $160. The Worker Harrier started off at $190, but on Out of Dart's website, it is actually $185, so a little $5 discount there. So with the Worker Swift, you could buy barrels and springs to upgrade as well, but they were non-threaded. You needed to change out your breech for it, and there were a myriad of things for the Worker Swift that you had to purchase separately that are included with the Worker Harrier, like a metal trigger. That being said, if you wanted to buy the Worker Swift and all of the first-party upgrades for it, you could, but it would cost you closer to $300, even now with it being discounted on some people's websites. The Worker Harrier has a lot of those upgrades already built into it, and if you wanted to fully upgrade it, every upgrade from Worker, all the barrel combinations, the even more bearing prime mod, and a few other knickknacks, you absolutely could. Under $250 even now. So I'm not sure that the Worker Swift makes sense to buy brand new anymore. Another upgrade that I forgot to mention is the Worker Vanguard pusher, which is basically a skinny pusher which allows you to insert your mags and take them out without priming the blaster, something I greatly appreciate as a competitive player. I'm also not a huge fan of this little tiny Eagle mag. You can buy these separately if you wanted to for your existing blasters, but they don't exactly look good in other blasters. I don't even think it looks good in the Harrier per se. And it's also difficult to take in and out. I would have much rather that it came with a mag like the one that the Worker Swift did, the little 10-round mag. I think that's much more fitting for the aesthetic, much easier to take in and out. It is worth noting that you can also use this with the Tamagotchi mags, because the Taki mags have the same geometry as the Worker mags. They just have a wider feed lip and a higher capacity. But with a blaster that's already this big, you may favor something a little smaller. $200 is a hard price tag to swallow. If you're looking for some budget high performers under $100, then you should check out my holiday gift guide over here. But that's all I have for you today. For some reason I feel like I'm forgetting something, but I'm sure you'll let me know what it is down in the comments. And to my fellow Californians, stay dry out there. To the rest of you, have a blast, and until next time on the King of Games.